I'm gonna start with a story. Hopefully, it's gonna resonate with you guys. I'm gonna tell you kind of how I dealt with the problem of balance because I feel that at some point we all go through it and we will always keep going through that same problem of like, man, I just don't feel balanced. And then Shane will hit with a lot more of like the philosophical side of the topic. So, obviously. So, yeah. So I don't know if this ever happened to you. There's been a lot of times that I can think in my life since I was a little kid. Okay, and this might have happened to you. I was a little kid, and I'll get back from school, and right after school, I'll go to work with my dad. Okay, every time. And then after that, I'll go to English classes. Okay, then after that, I'll go to karate, and then after that, have to do my homework. So there was, in my mind, there was never time. I was out of balance compared to my friends because my friends could, in my mind, my definition of balance at that time was going to school because that's your one responsibility as a kid, and then have some fun, play some video games or some computer games, or get out of the house on a bike or whatever. And I felt out of balance because I remember throwing, when you're like a little teenager, well, maybe like you're hitting puberty and you start like throwing big words at your parents and like, Dad, I'm just not balanced. It's not fair. And you say it's not fair a lot. So that happened to me when I was a kid or a teenager. And then I feel like it happened to me when I was a student, right? I was a student, even in high school, taking advanced classes and stuff like that. I'm out of balance because now I gotta play football and I still gotta go work. My dad always, took us to work, and it was an obligation, and I couldn't understand why. And now I'm thankful that he instilled that in us, right? And I remember throwing that word and just saying like, man, I just feel out of balance. I just feel out of balance because my friends are doing all this and I'm not. I'm just out here working and grinding, and so I feel like I felt I lost track of my. The reason why those moments happen is because I lost track of my definition of balance and the type of life that I wanted. Right. So I'll just get caught up in the moment, and that's why I always thought about how imbalanced I was. And now that I'm thinking about it older in the business, 10 years later, I still feel out of balance sometimes. And I notice that when I feel out of balance is when I'm watching a lot of TV, when I'm spending a lot of time on social media, and when I'm seeing all that facade that happens in social media of like what the ideal life is. Does that make sense? And you guys know that when you see all these stories, it's not really how their life is. It's just like a highlight or a couple things that look cool, but that's not really what's happening. And we had, Mr. John, the alumni, talk to us a few days ago, yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah. Um, and he said like, hey, I mean, we don't want to be like 95% of the population. We want to be different. Therefore, we must do different things, right? And it takes what year after year after year, what took me to get back and feel like I was balanced is redefining the word balance. So I'm going to encourage you to start writing down what is balance for you. Go ahead and write it down. What does balance speak to you? What does that mean? What does that mean? And if you feel like, how man, 50% work, 50% chilling, I would say that that's probably the average definition of most people. It's like, oh, a balanced life means that I can work and that I can also have a lot of fun at the same time. Well, I'm sorry to break it to you. I just really do not feel that balance exists at all. There is always going to be work bleeding into your life, right? And then life bleeding into your work, and that's totally okay. The faster I acknowledge that, the more peace I had when I was working, right? Also, what helped me, and I'm just kind of telling you my story, so hopefully it will resonate with a couple of you guys so you can apply this, because again, I do feel out of balance sometimes. I just always went back to like those rocks, those pillars in the importance areas of my life, right? And instead of prioritizing, I feel like sometimes we feel out of balance when we're like, that's not my priority. These are my priorities. But in reality, what I learned, working with Virgie, is that sometimes we don't really have to prioritize. We could do well at every single part, in all the areas of our lives. So identifying your rocks, why each of your rocks is important, and then having a couple of goals for each of them. And as long as you're doing well with those goals, you're in balance, right? And sometimes, yeah, it's gonna be a lot more. For me, I realized that it was gonna be a lot more work and a lot less fun. So then in the future, I can have a lot more fun and a lot less work. And then sometimes that's not going to be the whole time, right? At some point, it'll be again a lot more work and a lot more fun, a lot less fun, and that's totally okay. So the moment that you redefine what the word balance is, the easier it'll be for you to take on tough tasks or challenges in life. Also, I made a decision to change the word balance. Instead of like, oh, I need to find balance, just how can I integrate, my work and my life? Just use the word integration. Just changing your vocabulary helps so much and it goes a long way. Okay? Or instead of like, I got this from Jeff Bezos. You guys know who Jeff Bezos is? Amazon, right? Right? Pretty successful guy. He says that I prefer the word harmony. Harmony, right? To the word balance, because balance tends to imply a strict trade off and you're always fighting. It's always like more this, more of that, and you're always like a discontent with an area of your life. So he's like, what if we just think about, work life harmony instead of work life balance? Again, this is about redefine, just like we redefine the word success, how about redefining the word balance? And being okay with working a lot. Kind of like the short-term sacrifice, long-term benefit. Right? Being okay with it and just finding joy in that for the moment, for the principles that you're developing. And I preach that all the time. It helps with sales, it helps with balance, it helps, with giving yourself a purpose. I like this quote too. You will never be satisfied by work until you're satisfied by life. So how can you feel good about yourself? What are the principles that you're working on? What are the things that you could do right now that align with those principles, so that way you don't have to feel out of balance? So that way I know why I'm choosing to work 80 hours a week during the summer. Okay? That's really, really important. Again, if you guys know that you have really high goals, just know, what I did is that I prepped in advance. I'm like, at some point this spring, I'm probably going to feel out of balance again because I got to tighten up my work. I got to chill in the fall. I actually got to travel for a full month. I went to a couple different countries, and now it's time to work, and that's okay. In the winter for those 2 weeks, it was a lot, and it was pretty imbalanced. It was a lot of fun and nothing of work, pretty imbalanced. It's just funny how sometimes we only, no, I'm not even going to say we. I only talked about balance when it had to do with work. And I never talked about balance when it had to be with having fun. Literally never. And this is different. That's why, because I know Shane's different. Shane, I could literally be in my house doing nothing and I wouldn't really feel that bad. And he will. And he would, if he's doing nothing for like a couple hours, and he'll probably share that in a little bit. But during those 2 weeks in vacation, I was doing a lot of fun and nothing of work, and I didn't feel imbalanced. It's just funny when we attach the word work that we feel, right? That I feel. Again, just like the whole minute manager thing that Dan always preaches, like, does your behavior match your goals? I always had to ask myself, like, okay, well, if my goals are here, what's my behavior like? And that always brought me back to normalcy. The last one is, people do not want to make sacrifices to be successful. And you have to. We have to. I realized that I had to. When I was taking, we heard this from the alumni yesterday too. When I was taking those cold showers at 6 a.m., I was not saying like, oh yeah, this is helping me for my long-term benefit, it was just those habits that I had to do that matched my goals, right? And making those uncomfortable decisions to become the man that I wanted to become. And he shared a really powerful story about balance and how he had to get surgery. He was in a situation where he had to go into the surgery into the the emergency room to get surgery for about 13 or 14 hours. And he was going through a medical procedure for 13 or 14 hours. And he said, man, I'm so glad, I'm so glad that my surgeon was out of balance. I'm so glad that my surgeon was working for 14 hours on his feet doing surgery on my body. I'm so glad he was in balance at that moment. Because he chose what he loved doing, helping people through the medical field, and therefore, saved his life. And I'm not going to say, I can't remember if it was a life-threatening thing, but still all surgeries are life-threatening, right? And that's, I feel like that's what I'm gonna decide to adopt, that type of mentality. Like I'm totally okay being in balance, so I can get closer to my goals and also to help others, become the man or the woman that they want to become, right?